on the 12th of July, the day after the man on the crutch got healed, I remember sitting on the beach and praying and saying, Jesus, I would just love an opportunity to just preach the gospel to these guys here. And that opportunity came in a weird and wonderful way. I was about to go in to snorkel, and I'm really not a water guy. Like, I really hate swimming. I think it's a waste of time. Maybe, no, I'm not going to go there. But, I really hate swimming. I can't stand it. I'm not a very good swimmer, but, I'll try. Anyway, I'm about to go snorkeling, and I'm not a strong swimmer, and my wife knows this. And as I'm about to go snorkeling, I hear this blood-curdling scream from a man shouting for help. And I look around, and sure enough, there was a man's body being dragged out of the water and brought onto the beach. Turns out, this man's body who's been brought out, the man is called Michalis Georgiou. He's about in his late 60s, early 70s. And the man who rescued him out of the water is called, Cypriot names, Louisa Louisa. Okay, you can look him up on my Facebook. He's given full permission for this. So anyway, Louisa gets Michalis out of the water, and they're trying to resuscitate him. And, Rachel and her sister were at the beach, and they're terrified because all they heard is a scream, and they're looking around thinking, all we know is Joe's not a strong swimmer. And they're looking around, and there I am stood there like in the water. And you all know, thankfully, it's not Joel. And then there's this guy's body that gets dragged on. So dozens of people start to gather around this man's body, and all I saw is that there was white foam around this man's mouth. His eyes were open, they were glazed over, there was no life in him. And they wiped the white foam off of his mouth, and they started to resuscitate him. Turns out Michalis Georgiou, who went out for a swim in the water, ended up having a stroke in the water, and it started to sink. A little girl noticed his body, didn't think anything of it, carried on playing in the water, and about 5 minutes later turns around to her big sister and says, that man's been under the water for a while. So the big sister's thinking, goes to their dad, and he's like, Daddy, that man's been under the water for a long time, is he okay? And so their quick thinking dad quickly dives in, gets the man out of the water and brings him out. And honestly, there's no life in this guy. They're trying to feel for a pulse, they're trying to resuscitate him, there is nothing in him. And there's dozens of people gathered there, and I'm just stood there, and I feel like I should do something, but I don't know what. And so I go over to the lady about 10 minutes later who's been doing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Her name was Kendra. She happened to be the wife of Loizu, who's the guy who rescued him out of the water, the mother to the kids who noticed his body. And I go over to Kendra and I said, would you like for me to take over from mouth-to-mouth? Bearing in mind, I've never done mouth-to-mouth on a real-life body before. I used to work as a carer for the elderly, so we had to learn how to do first aid and stuff like that. Thankfully, I've never had to do it, but in this instant, I felt this is all I could offer and this is all I could do. And I remember doing about, at the most, 3 or 4 breaths over Mr. Georgiou, and nothing happened. Kendra had been trying for 10 minutes with mouth-to-mouth and chest compressions, and nothing worked. This man's eyes were still glazed over, his lips were blue, his face swollen. There was no life in him. They're trying to feel for a pulse, there's nothing there. And I feel hopeless as I'm trying to breathe into this man's body, till eventually something just comes over me, and I just slap my hand on Michalis' side, and there's something from deep within that made me shout out. And I just shouted out, in Jesus' name, I speak life into your body. Come to life right now. And in front of hundreds of people, this man's body jolts and comes back to life. There is actually a video. There's a video of Louisa Louisa, who rescued him out of the water, that I'd like to show you. So why don't you pay attention? This is his account of what happened. You know, I didn't mention this bit, but the moment I saw this man's body jolt, it's like I was here like this, and I just jumped up in this excitement. I was like, yes, Jesus, come on. And I looked around to everyone, and it was like this little voice was just like, you remember that prayer that you wanted to preach to the beach? Here's your chance. And so I just turned around to the beach. I was like, you all saw what happened. That wasn't me. That was Jesus. They tried everything. They tried to resuscitate him. They tried mouth to mouth. They tried chest compressions. Nothing worked. I have no magic in my hands. That was Jesus. What doubt can you have in your mind about what Jesus can do in your life today because of what Jesus did to this man? He was dead and he's now alive. And that's because Jesus is still alive. No other God can say that. And after that, I had people at the beach coming to get more prayer. People at the beach started to line up, and there was this lady who brought her mum along who had a bad back and bad knees. She gets healed completely. Her grandkids were there, and they were like, it's magic. I was like, it's Jesus. Okay, we don't use the M word. And Jesus did this amazing thing where hundreds of people bore witness to the power of God and were open to the gospel. The funny thing is, my father-in-law was telling me the other day, he said he was talking to someone from Tiverton in Devon, this little town, about what God had done in Cyprus. And this lady says, I know this story already, but carry on. And my father-in-law says, what do you mean you know this story? She says, that day, someone from our church was actually on that beach. And they heard a voice shout out, in Jesus' name, come to life right now. And they saw the beach erupt, because they bore witness to God's glory and his power.